Hello there, this is Redjoy, and this is a new look at Bards and their kits for Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. When you think of a bard in Dungeons & Dragons, you think of someone who's like an entertainer or almost a little bit of a magician with their ability to use sleight of hand and performance skills in order to enhance their abilities in and out of combat. So if you look at, for example, Dungeons & Dragons in 5th edition, if you play, for example, Baldur's Gate 3, or if you're playing around your table, they're very, very well defined. They have their own particular set of magic, they have their own unique abilities, they have their own unique skills, and their equipment more reflects their ability to be the musician or the entertainer with a flair of magic and a flair of their version of trickery. However, for Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, Baldur's Gates 1 and 2, the bard is a little bit different. It wasn't as clearly defined as just an entertainer or someone who uses their entertainment power to guide them in the battlefield. And I'll explain this throughout the video. A bard can use any weapon to at least some level of proficiency, but they're not going to be able to specialize with any weapon. The bard also gets to use the bard song that prevents panic or fear, and they can pick pockets just like any thief can pick pockets. The biggest benefit that a bard can get is that they can cast spells starting at level 2. This is going to be a little bit different than a full wizard, but the initial part of that is going to be quite similar. They have to go around and they have to learn spells from scrolls that they pick up, and they can start doing that right away at level 1, but they're not going to be able to start casting spells until they get to level 2. They can cast spells up to spell level 6, so you're talking about spells like Death Spell, you're talking about spells like protection from magic weapons, and spells of that kind of level. And their spellcasting ability is about as powerful in the kind of later game as a wizard's spellcasting ability up to that point. So while a wizard will be able to get level 7, 8, and 9 spells, a bard is going to be stuck at just level 6. So the trade-off with not getting the incredibly powerful level 7, 8, and 9 spells is that the bard is going to have a little more potency to their spells. Let me explain. So there's a lot of spells in the game that scale in their power to the level of the caster. A level 10 wizard is going to have more power with some of their spells compared to a level 5 wizard. The same is going to apply to a bard. However, the bard levels up a tiny bit faster in the early game than a wizard does, and then that accelerates throughout the later part of the game. For example, I'm going to throw quite a few numbers at you, so you're going to have to bear with me. At 32,000 XP, a wizard is going to be up to level 5, while a bard is up to level 6. It's not a huge difference at first, but it accelerates, particularly with Baldur's Gate 2. At 1 million XP, a wizard is going to be at level 12, while a bard is going to be at level 14. Again, not a huge difference, but it's starting to pick up. At 3 million XP, a wizard is going to be at level 18, while a bard is going to be at level 23. This, by the way, is the point where you start picking up high-level abilities. We'll talk about that in just a bit. At 6 million XP, a wizard is going to be at level 26, while a bard will be at level 37. And at the maximum of 8 million, a wizard will end up at level 31, while a bard can reach level 40. Now imagine, if you're casting Stone Skin, if you're casting Mirror Image, if you're casting the spells that scale up, would you rather be level 31 or level 40? I think we both know what the answer would be. Again, as mentioned, they're only getting up to level 6 spells, so that trade-off might not be worth it if you're really focused on getting the incredibly high-level spells, which, I mean, you should be if you're playing as a caster. But they do get the benefit, the bard does get a benefit of getting to use any weapon they want in the game, provided they have the requirements for it, and they get the ability of the use any item high-level ability, which are both really big benefits that a bard gets over a normal caster. So a bard is okay in combat, but they aren't great. I did get into some trouble last year when I suggested that a bard is a tanky character. I think a bard can be tanky, but you are going to have some limits compared to a fighter mage, a cleric, or a sorcerer. So maybe that's a big correction from what I said last year. Again, they can be tanky with Stone Skin and Mirror Image and protection from magic weapons, but they may not be at the same caliber as a wizard or a fighter mage, so just watch out for that. Oh, something else to note is that bards get the highest lore score in the game, so if you're ever wondering about identifying items as a bard, they got you covered. Mostly. You still might pick up that magical scroll from time to time that you have to wait to identify, because usually those scrolls are like the hardest thing to identify. It's not super common, but it does happen from time to time. So a bard is going to be shaped by the kits that they could possibly choose. You can go with a baseline bard and you'll be great, but they do have 3 particular kits that you can play as. The first is a blade. Blade is, imagine like a combat actor, right? They're like a musician that also has a little bit of action movie experience. So a blade is going to be able to, first off, they can excel in 2-weapon combat, getting 3 points in. They can put 3 points into 2-weapon style. It's really good. They can also get the offensive spell and defensive spell ability. The offensive spell grants the effects of haste, so you get a bonus to movement, you get an extra attack per round, you get a bonus to hit, and to the maximum damage that you can do, and all hits that do hit are going to deal maximum damage for the duration. So that's kind of like Kai for the Kensai. It's pretty good. So offensive spin is a really good ability, and you should use it as often as you can, particularly for those really tough fights. Defensive spin roots the bard or roots the blade in place. It gets them an armor bonus of +1 per level of the blade. Remember, they're going to be leveling up a little bit faster, up to a maximum of 10. Defensive spin is really bad. It should be avoided being used at all costs. For the trade-offs, the blade only has 1/2 of the lore value. Okay, their lore value is still going to be really good, but they're only going to have 1/2 of a pickpocket skill. Again, okay. You can use potions, just like a thief can, so you can steal stuff from any stores if you need to. Just pop a ton of potions and you'll be fine. I oftentimes don't even find myself using pickpockets all that frequently, except for the beginning of Baldur's Gate 2. So the blade, I think, is really good. Again, they get to cast the same spells that a normal bard can cast, so you do get a bit of combat prowess, but don't mistake it for being a full frontline fighter unless you get those high-level spells. So at the beginning of the game, the blade's going to have a little bit of trouble. You can use offensive spin with short bows, crossbows, longbows. You can use it for distance weapons. So don't be afraid to toss that in with your early game kiting, but then later on you can toss in those 2 blades and just go to town on any enemies that you come across. So next is the Jester. The Jester is obviously a comedian who does a bit of spellcasting. The Jester's Bard Song, the difference between a Jester and a normal Bard is that a Jester's Bard Song is going to be offensive. It's going to cause opponents to either become confused, or later on to be slowed, or to be knocked unconscious. But the problem that I see with this is that the opponent is going to get a +2 bonus to save against it. Now, I guess the trade-off to that is that it happens every 7 seconds, which is pretty quick. It's a pretty quick turnaround, but that's a lot of kind of random instances that an opponent is going to have a chance at passing with a +2 bonus, and the effect only lasts for 7 seconds. So that's not a huge amount of time, and all of that time, the Jester is literally standing there just doing their song. Oh, they can move around and do their song. So some people really, really enjoy that. I don't think it's as impactful as other people think. They get the advantage of not having any disadvantages, so you don't really get any negative trade-offs, but I would much rather have a different Bard Song, or have a Bard Song that has a little more power to it and taking away this bonus to being confused. I don't see many people playing as a Jester online, just because I don't know, this +2 bonus just kind of annoys me. Either that or have the effect last a lot longer. That would be kind of a nice thing for the Jester. It would be a good trade-off. So I think this is more of an inconvenience than anything else, and the blades and the Bard song that they do get, which already eliminates fear and panic, I just find that to be a bit more useful, especially in the oh crap situations where your enemy casts horror and you have your people running around. You can take your Bard and kind of move them to wherever the panicked people are, have them sing the song and eliminate the panic. Great groovy, that's a good oh crap emergency situation. But the Jester having this offensive song, not a huge fan. Finally, there is the Skald. The Skald I describe as being a combination between being a veteran war correspondent and a hype man for the party. They, off the bat, they're going to get a bonus to hit and to attack, to hit and to damage, so that's not bad. Their Bard song is also a bit different. They are going to, their Bard song is going to grant allies a bonus to hit and to damage and a bonus to AC, and that goes up. Now they do lose the component of eliminating fear and panic, but this is what I would imagine a Bard song to be. It's to make the allies more powerful in general, and that's why I like this trade-off more than I like the Jester's trade-off. This is a guaranteed bonus that's going to affect all the party members, and I just think it's really quite good. At 20th level, they're immune to fear, stun, and confusion. Wow, that's pretty good. It's already pretty good at level 1 with getting the bonus to hit and to damage and bonus to AC. 15, it gets even better. I think the Skald is really quite good if you're okay with something not being incredibly flashy, right? They only get a quarter of pickpocket score, not a big problem. Just toss in a couple of potions and you'll be fine. I really enjoy, I think the Skald is a really cool concept. As mentioned, I think there's a lot of kits out there that are not necessarily flashy per se, but they do quite a lot under the surface. And I think that those kits, we don't celebrate them enough in forums or posts online or when you guys are yelling at me about how wrong I am. The Skald is one of those where it's not something that gets celebrated too much, but it's a really good kit. So I would say my favorite kits are the Blade and the Skald. Jester, I don't even think it's that terrible. I just think that you're in for a challenge if you think that the Bard song, the Jester song, is really, really great. Base Bard is awesome too. I think they're really quite good. So you're not going to be a bad spot if you decide to play as any of these kits. So for alignment, you have to be some form of neutral. So you could be neutral good, neutral evil, lawful, true, or chaotic neutral. I think this makes a lot of sense, along with the fact that they are just they are between law and chaos, they're between good and evil. This makes a lot of sense. I really enjoy the Bard's alignment. For ability scores, the key ability scores are actually kind of interesting. Charisma is the one that a lot of people associate with the Bard. If you're coming from 5th edition D&D, that's the one that is their spellcasting ability. However, this is not the case in Baldur's Gates 1 and 2. That is going to be intelligence. So you want to pop intelligence to be as high as possible. You're going to be hard locked at charisma to 15. You don't need it higher. If you want it higher, if you want to be the face of your party, go ahead and pop it up to 18. You don't get any harm from doing that, but you also don't get any major benefits outside of the better prices and better reputation score, or better interactions with other quest givers. It's really intelligence that works very similar to how a mage's intelligence works, where it impacts their the number of spells that they can learn and their chance of memorizing spells. So you want that intelligence score to be 18. Next up, dexterity, it's gotta be up to 18. There's never a reason why it shouldn't be. And constitution, as always, I always put up to 16 if you're not a fighter or a ranger or a paladin or a monk. There's no reason to have it above 16. So you have the remainder of your stats. Again, you can max out charisma to be 18. Something else too is you can pump up strength. Strength is actually a really good thing to pump up, especially if you are planning on having your blade with tons of mirror images and stone skins joining the fighters at the front line. You're not going to be as good as a fighter. I want to stress that point. But you can take quite a number of hits that aren't going to hurt you if you have a huge number of stone skins and protection from magic weapons and a ton of things up already. So rely on those spells to help you out, and strength can at least give a little bit of a buff, especially if you're playing as a blade, right? If you're playing as a blade, you might as well have as much strength as possible, so you can use things like flails and swords, and you also get a bonus to hurt if you have hurting enemies if you also use slings, right? And that gets us nicely into the weapon proficiencies that you can go with. You have a full range. You can use any weapons in the game. I think actually there is one exception. You can't use composite longbows. So even if you have 18 strength, you still can't use composite longbows. Okay, fine. Longbows are just going to be fine. I actually think short bows are probably going to be a better choice. If you can't use composite longbows, go with short bows. Crossbows are a really good choice too. As far as melee weapons go, the world's your oyster. You are not relegated to using the same sorts of weapons that a thief would use. Such as like short swords or long swords or scimitars or katanas, right? You can use flails. You can use two-handed swords. You can use halberds. You can use whatever you feel like if you want to. I think having one blunt option is a good option. And the nice part too is that you can only, well, okay, I'm not going to say this is a nice part, but the piece that is an important factor is you can only put 1 point into these weapons. You can't put more than 1 point into these weapons. So you might as well spread around the wealth to get as many weapons as possible so you can use as many weapons. The exception to this would be the blade. I would make sure that you put weapons and put points into 2-weapon style, but you're probably not going to be doing that right away. You probably want to have at least 1 point into either short bows or crossbows or even slings, and make sure that you have that ready to go as a good kiting option, and then start putting points into 2-weapon style, so you're getting the nice benefits of attacking with 2 weapons. As an additional note, for skills, you can get pickpockets, you get that right away, and for bards, they're going to get that pretty high level, so and you're going to get more points into it every single level, so you'll be able to use that. You can also use potions in order to increase that, and you can get yourself a lot of money, particularly at the early part of Baldur's Gate 2. Find events and steal stuff and sell it back to them. It's a really great way to cheese a lot of money, and you get a lot of scrolls in order to learn spells, which gets me to the next part, which is while they are a spellcaster, they're going to not get spells right away. Instead, they're going to get their spells later on in the game, starting at level 2, and that's only at 1250 XP. So they're leveling up the same rate as thieves are. Just keep in mind that once you hit level 4 or 5000 XP, you'll be able to get Mirror Image, Blur, and Web, which are 3 of my favorite level 2 spells. At level 10 or 160,000 XP, you'll be able to get Stone Skin, and then you'll finally be able to get really nice spells in order to protect your beautiful, beautiful backside. Now, as mentioned, when they get up to their high level abilities, which is at 3 million XP, they can pick up the Use Any Item HLA, grab that right away. But they also get the HLA traps, the high level ability traps that are what rogues would get or what thieves would get. The nice part too is it's set automatically. Unlike a thief that has to put a ton of points into set traps, a bard will be able to set those up immediately. So that's kind of nice. So the big one that you want to pick up is Spike Trap. Spike Trap is really powerful, does a lot of damage. And then finally they get the Enhanced Bard Song. Now the Enhanced Bard Song will replace whatever Bard Song that your kit would use. If you had tried out the Jester and you managed to survive to 3 million XP and you're sick and tired of your enemies not really being impacted by confusion, then you're going to get a new Bard Song. However, if you played as a Skald or as a normal Bard and you've been really happy with your Bard Song, you're going to get a different one. Now, it's not terrible. It's actually a pretty good Bard Song. What it does is it grants a +4 Thaco bonus, it grants a +4 damage bonus, a +4 armor class bonus, and all of those are, by the way, to the entire party. The Bard himself or herself will get a +10 AC bonus. They'll get immunity to panic, stun, and confusion, protection from normal weapons, which, at 3 million XP, that's not a huge deal, and then +5 magic resistance, plus 10 for the Bard when it's sung. This is not bad. This is pretty good. It keeps them and their faces pretty, their party's faces pretty. Just make sure that you keep the rest of your party protected when you are using these spells, or when you're using the song. You keep them protected with items, spells, solid set of tactics. Play smart. That's really the biggest thing I would say for Bards, is play smart. Don't just rush in and think that just because I have Stone Skin and Mirror Image and Protection from Magic Weapons, I'm going to be the tank of the group. You have to play it smart. And I think that was the big problem for me, is that I saw the Bard as, oh yeah, it's basically just a mage that can have more weapon availability and can just go right in and just handle any problem. No. That's not the way a Bard is. You have to play it smart. You have to use tactics in order to make sure that you're actually keeping your Bard alive and using them for being a great secondary caster. Hair de Lis is a really good example of a Bard that works. He is a blade. You pick him up in Baldur's Gate 2, and if you toss on some good spells on him, along with the innate weapons that he gets and the unique elements he gets for being a tiefling, not bad. He's actually really quite good. But you will need to play him smart if you decide to pick him up. So if you decide to play as a Bard, a Blade, a Jester, or a Skald, I'm not going to say good luck. I'm going to say break a leg. Just make sure it's your enemy's legs and not your own. So for now, take care and good luck. We're all counting on you.